welcome to HITC Sport. Alright, so they say big money takeovers like at Man City and Chelsea, they've ruined football forever. Okay, maybe they have, alright? But let's take a look at what the Premier League table would look like today if every club's biggest takeover rumour had actually happened. Give everyone a big fat bag of cash, and who'd come out on top? Oh, and by the way lads, remember now that the same owner is not allowed to own two separate clubs. So just remember that. Man City fans. 20th, Crystal Palace, Thaksin Shinawatra. Big money takeover talks are usually enough to make a fan base giddy with excitement. If I was a Crystal Palace fan, it wouldn't matter that this was a £200 million takeover. Bringing in Thaksin Shinawatra as owner, I'd be running for cover. This is a guy who nearly drove Man City into oblivion. Christ, he was supposed to be a football owner and was instead just fleeing the Thai government. This club had just shipped 8 at Middlesbrough. They needed some leadership, and here he was on the run. And so last year in June 2019, when he was linked with a return to England via Sellers Park, if you thought this was a mega money super deal which would have convinced the likes of Wilfried Zaha to stay, then no. Within a year the club would probably be managed by Sven-Göran Eriksson, with the owner living out of a cardboard box. 19th, Preston, David Beckham. Yeah, it must be incredibly dull being a Preston fan. I'm sorry, but it's true, alright? Their fans haven't so much as taken a dump in a top flight toilet since 1961. Instead they've just been slumming in the lower leagues, probably using their socks as toilet paper. But it could have all changed back in September 2008. At the time, Chairman Derek Shaw, presiding over a club slumped halfway down the second tier, apparently he was about to enter negotiations to sell the club to former loanee David Beckham. Obviously this didn't happen. Setting up his own MLS franchise in sunny Miami is a bit more attractive than taking over a club with a fat John Parkin stuffed up front. But you just know the ambitious Beckham would have pumped the money in, and he has enough clout to attract big names. Probably former teammates like Luis Figo, Roberto Carlos, Michael Owen and Landon Donovan. Maybe. 18th, Charlton, Zabil Investment. Yeah, this would have saved Charlton a lot of pain. Back in October 2008, around the same time as Preston's takeover talk, they were forced to watch a consortium of Dubai billionaires pull out of the club. At the time, the club were riddled in debt and reeling from a top-flight relegation under Alan Pardew. Seeing this takeover collapse, it'd be a bit like if an Oliver Twist riddled with polio was forced to watch his wealthy would-be parents decide not to sign the papers and leave him stuck in the orphanage. This company was owned by the Maktoum family, the rulers of Dubai, with a fortune of $4.5 billion. Had this happened, you're damn right Pardew would have been stuffed in a bin. There'd have been proper dignified signings. The likes of Carlton Cole, Jimmy Bullard, maybe even bringing back the likes of Scott Parker and Darren Bent upon promotion. Not the arrivals of Nicky Bailey and Rob Holtz. 17th, Coventry City, Joe Jardinza. Yeah, back to the spring of 2004. Imagine if this had actually happened at the time. At just 29 years of age, this local businessman, a man who owns 19 cars and whose neighbours include Elton John and the King of Bahrain, this fella described himself as a Coventry kid and revealed he wanted to become the club's version of Roman Abramovich.
Roman Abramovich put 150 million to 200 million to Chelsea, and there's no reason why we can't match that or even beat it. I see no reason why we can't be challenging at the top of the Premiership or in European competitions within the next 2 or 3 years.
Why? Why would you get their hopes up like that? Had this happened, had this man taken over and stuck to his word, then yeah, why not Premier League football? The money and ambition was there. 16th, Sunderland, random Chinese consortium. Again, this would have changed everything for Sunderland. Had Ellis Schwartz sold this club to a Chinese consortium for over £150 million in November 2016 like was rumoured, then Sam Allardyce was going to be reinstalled at David Moyes' expense, the club wouldn't have lurched into freefall, there'd be no tears on Netflix, and they'd be a financially secure Premier League club. 15th, Norwich, Peter Cullum.
Norwich break off takeover talks with billionaire Cullum.
Similarly, this would have saved the Norwich fans a lot of misery. One summer before relegation to League One, Norwich were in talks with Peter Cullum, a 57-year-old executive chairman of the Towergate Partnership, ranked in the top 40 of Britain's rich list, and who announced he was prepared to chuck an initial £20 million into the club. Instead of turning into a perennial selling club, they'd probably now have a midfield consisting of Tad Cantwell and James Maddison. They'd have Nathan Redmond and Robbie Brady stuck on the wings. It would have been pretty good. 14th, Blackburn, Western Gulf Advisory. You know how the Venkies have taken a chicken-sized dump on Ewood Park, doing their level best to destroy the club? It could have been so different. 2 months before that takeover, back in September 2010, Hassan Al Saeed, a man in charge of a £7 billion company, tried to launch a £300 million takeover.
There's huge potential. We need to be more innovative. You go back in history, United and Real Madrid started somewhere. They did not start as giants. I want an opportunity to start somewhere. I cannot write the books of history in one day. I need time.
Whether he could have conquered Europe with Chris Samba and Yakubu, I doubt, but anything is better than the Venkies. 13th, Bolton, Saudi-based group. Oh, Bolton, instead of being a club on virtual life support, Bolton could be back in the Premier League. Can you imagine the reactions from Fogdad? In November 2016, there were rumours about a Saudi-based group with worth billions of pounds who were about to rescue the club from the pit of despair. Had this happened, you'd probably have Kevin Nolan as manager, steering the club to mid-table top half safety. 12, Leicester, top shriven avid bra. Alright, well, Leicester's big money takeover actually went through over 10 years ago. Listen, in this fantasy world where everyone is rich, then yeah, they'd still be in the Premier League, but nowhere near top 4. And I have to imagine with all these rich owners and the prospect of ludicrous wages being chucked around like confetti, the likes of Jamie Vardy would now probably be earning £500,000 a week at someone like Aston Villa. 11th, Wolves, Fussing International. Yeah, we already know this one. Wolves' mega-rich takeover has already happened, and they're living the dream. The Chinese investors have pumped in a lot of money, got in cahoots with Jorge Mendes, and watched their squad be flooded with top-class Portuguese internationals. Yeah, 11th in the league. 10th, Leeds Red Bull. Okay, for any of you Leeds fans who'd be skeptical about being owned by a fizzy drink company, yes, okay lads, Red Bull is a huge conglomerate who've often failed to keep their promises. Namely the one about their product giving you wings. Are you telling me if I drink a 6-pack of Red Bull and then jump off a 6-story building I'm gonna be fine? But when it comes to football lads, RB Leipzig, Red Bull Salzburg, yes, Red Bull are trying to monopolise football. And it could have been Leeds as well. Back in 2015 they were being linked with a £60 million takeover. Listen, if there are other projects or anything to go by, they're the being cash, European football and a name change. So Leeds United would be gone forever. In their place, Red Bull Peacocks. Christ above. But hey, you'd have been a club stuffed with marquee but sensible top class signings. Players like James Milner, Fabian Delph and Lewis Cook. It would be a controversial one considering Red Bull went in and erased Salzburg's past from history. So for Leeds, remember that Champions League semi-final? Didn't happen. Remember Mark Viduka and Alan Smith? No, you shouldn't. Doesn't exist. Remember that win at Old Trafford? No, me neither. But there is something good to this. I mean, remember that League One playoff defeat the Doncaster Rovers? And that didn't happen. No, Red Bull would have wiped that from history. Although changing the name and identity is one thing, but pretending their history never happened, that's a bit far. I mean, you don't see Caitlyn Jenner chucking her Olympic medals in a bin. 9th, Portsmouth, Roman Abramovich.
Roman Abramovich almost bought Portsmouth, says Montague.
Oh lads, it's true. Roman Abramovich could have been the Portsmouth owner. When trying to select an English club to buy in 2003, he was offered the prospect of Pompey from super agent Pini Zahavi, and apparently he was close to considering it. So there we go. Had that happened, Chelsea probably would not exist, and we'd have seen a Pompey era of dominance under Jose Mourinho. Didier Drogba at Franklin Park, good lord. Instead of signing David Nugent, they'd have been dragging in Andrei Shevchenko. 8th, Liverpool, Shaikh Khalid. Yeah, remember when Sheikh Mansour's cousin almost bought Liverpool for £2 billion? Those were the reports in late 2017 anyway, when Sheikh Khalid, the same fellow who tried to buy Newcastle, tried to wedge his way into Anfield. But unlike if this had happened at Newcastle, where half the Geordie fan base would have probably sacrificed a kidney to get a sniff of this man's money, I don't think Liverpool fans would have particularly welcomed this. Fenway Sports Group have delivered everything and more. The club is literally in a perfect place. Had there been this unnecessary upheaval from a clearly fame-hungry sheikh who's trying to emulate his cousin with his own ideas, desperate to stamp his own authority and changes to the club, who knows what would have happened? Most owners like to appoint their own managers, so Jurgen Klopp would have been unnecessarily dumped for a crowd-pleasing name like Steven Gerrard to get the fans on side. A bit like when Mike Ashley's answer to a relegation dogfight was to rid the club of the steady Sam Allardyce to bring in Kevin Keegan, a club legend, yes, but he literally spent the last 5 years working down an actual circus. The transfer targets would have changed. Instead of the necessary signings from below par clubs, it would have just been past it, yet global big names. Players like Mesut Ozil, Jordi Alba and Radamel Falcao signed as a supposed statement of intent. This would have been a rare case when a mega rich sheikh owner actually ruined the club. 7th, Aston Villa, Larry Ellison. Yeah, remember in April 2016 when Aston Villa were chained to the foot of the league and suddenly linked with a £100 million takeover? If this was true, then Larry Ellison is either stupid or just loves flushing away his cash, because this was a club in disarray headed for the drop. I would imagine in the world of filthy rich billionaires, their midlife crisis doesn't just involve a sports card and plugging the secretary, it involves buying Premier League football clubs. But Ellison was 71. Why would he want to plunge his 50 billion fortune into something with Scott Sinclair on the f***ing wing? This fella, the founder of Oracle, was the 6th richest man on the planet. Had this actually come off? Oh good lord! For a start, the club would have been immediately promoted as championship winners, chucking cash at every half-baked mercenary, ready to sacrifice career ambitions for paychecks in England's second tier. The likes of Samuel Eto'o, Emmanuel Adebayor and Hulk. By now, 4 years down the line, they'd be Europa League standard at the least, with a squad littered with big money signings. 6th, Arsenal, Aliko Dangote. Dangote though is the 88th wealthiest man on the planet. So what would have happened if he'd seized control in 2010? Well, first port of call, Arsene Wenger would have been sacked on the spot.
The first thing I would change is the coach.
Let's see, who was the flavour of the month of 2010? It'd have probably been replaced by someone like Martin O'Neill, in a move which would have caused most Arsenal fans to shoot brain juice out their years. Still though, an avid Arsenal fan with a £10 billion fortune. At least this fellow would take an active interest in the fortunes of the club, as opposed to spending every Arsenal match day cleaning his toenails on a Texas ranch. 5th, Man United, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Last February the talks surrounded Prince Mohammed bin Salman and his proposed £3.8 billion takeover of Manchester United, finally ready to restore them to the top of the English football pyramid. This man might look like he hasn't seen the inside of a barbershop in 15 years, but make no mistake about it, he comes from a family worth £850 billion. Had that gone through last February, let's see, what could he have done in a year? Well, the likes of Romelu Lukaku and Paul Pogba would probably be more likely to stay. Odegaard or Solskjaer would have been given the boot in favour of Diego Simeone, and with the club already being a European giant, would probably waste no time in attracting world-class talent like Jadon Sancho, Erling Haaland and Antoine Griezmann. Just 1 year into his reign, let's say 5th. 4th, Everton, Anil Ambani. Back in 2008, the media was almost falling over themselves to report that Bill Kenwright's time at Everton was up, with £20 billion man Anil Ambani, the 6th richest man on the planet at the time, ready to step into Goodison Park. This would have completely revamped the club, who at the time were punching above their weight in the top flight under David Moyes. Ambani's cash would have swept through the club like a tidal wave. Upgrades in every area. They would have been the original Man City. This would have been the first club to break up the top 4 monopoly. They'd have been the ones to overtake their rivals as the top dogs in the city. Oh, and you know when Rooney handed in that transfer request at Man United in 2010? Yeah, he'd have been returning to Goodison Park at the age of 25. So the fans would have got peak Rooney after all. 3rd, Tottenham Qatar. But yeah, here they were, the country of Qatar. But essentially this would have made Spurs the new PSG. Tim Sherwood would have been disposed of like a wet paper towel and replaced with someone like Jurgen Klopp. The unfashionable Harry Kane would have never received his big break, instead just being flushed out as someone like Crystal Palace, as the club dipped their hand into the fountain for world-class stars. If we're taking PSG as a model, then Spurs would already have 2 league titles in the bag, multiple domestic cups, with the likes of a shiny £200 million Neymar stuffed up front. 2nd, Newcastle Sheikh Mansour. The Floyd Mayweather takeover talk was just ridiculous. Had that actually happened, the entire club would have probably folded to the whims of the IRS. For Christ's sake, to keep Newcastle United going, that man would have probably been forced to beat up skinny Japanese kids well into his 60s. Instead, look away now, Newcastle fans, because Sheikh Mansour almost bought your club in 2008. Look at Man City, that could have been you. The 4 league titles, Champions League football, world-class superstars. No Steve McLaren, Pep Guardiola. Instead of Joe Linton up front, you'd be paying your season tickets to watch Sergio Aguero in black and white. You'd have spent the last decade watching David Silva in midfield, not Jack Colback, and you definitely wouldn't have lost to Sunderland 6 times in a row. 1st, Southampton, Wang Jianlin. Yeah, back in 2014, this was a headline.
Southampton would become Premier League's richest club as billionaire Wang Jianlin eyes £175 million takeover.
It would have completely turned the tables on the Premier League selling club. This is the CEO of China's largest real estate company. He alone is worth a whopping £19 billion. According to reports, he was trying to buy Katharina Libier out for £175 million and would have made the club richer than Man City. So by 2020, Mauricio Pochettino would most likely still be their manager, and no longer would they be flogging their best players. It wouldn't be Liverpool top of the league, it would be their supposed feeder club. Adam Lallana, a man who Southampton fans would gladly stab in the kidney. He'd no doubt be a league-winning club captain with over 500 games under his belt and a statue plonked outside the ground. Christ lads, they probably have a front line of Kylian Mbappe and old boy Gareth Bale. Anyway, that's it lads. By the way, Man City fans, I don't hate you, okay? This isn't a vendetta against you. I'm just being realistic, okay? Without your takeover, without your money, where would you be? Boy, this is awkward. Boy, I could... Ladies and gentlemen, here's a cat.